monster grips.
Hi, this is Matt Quistorf from QuistorfGuitar101.com, and this is going to be the video lesson that deals with diatonic approach, or the relationship between chords and scales. So I'm going to show you the major scale and how to take the notes from the major scale and convert them into chords, bar chord patterns, as a way to show how you can go from chords to single notes, mixing and matching to get different melodies or bass runs or whatnot. Just a fun way to practice where you're not just doing busy work. So here's the trick. So we're starting off with the major scale, and if you're looking at your chart, it's the very first pattern that's fingered. The fingering is very important. You want to develop certain stretches between some fingers, so you don't want to just use any finger whatsoever. You want to try to stick with what's on the paper to help develop, like I said, for technique and whatnot, just to keep it consistent. So we're starting with the G, which is the 3rd fret on low E string, and basically this scale is 3 notes per string. So the fingering we're going to have will be 1st finger, 2nd finger, pinky, so 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th fret. It's on low E string. A string is the exact same pattern, same fingering, 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th fret. The D and the G are going to be the 4th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, but again, 1st, 2nd, pinky. So G is the same thing, 4th fret, 5th fret, 7th fret. On the B string you have the 5th fret, and then the 7th and 8th fret, so 3rd finger, pinky, and the same thing for the high E string, 5th fret, 7th fret, pinky on 8. So the nice thing is every set of 2 strings is the same fingering. It's kind of a nice scale to work on. So you have 1st, 2nd, pinky, 1st, 2nd, pinky, 1st, 2nd, pinky, 1st, 2nd, pinky, 1st, 3rd, pinky, 1st, 3rd, pinky. And you want to go backwards. So just a straight old major scale. It's also known as the Ionian Mode. If you're looking at any kind of mobile theory, it's the exact same scale, just 2 different names. So the idea now is we're going to take, or our focus will be on the first 6 notes of the pattern. So you have the 1st note, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. And that's all we're concerned with at this point in regards to how to implement chords along with this scale. So we're going to take each of those 6 notes and turn them into a bar chord, either major or minor. The nice thing is all of the other voicings, major 7s, minor 9s, all this stuff will be the same theory. It's just going to be a matter of plugging a different voicing in the same spot. So when you learn this with the straight major and minor chords, you'll have the visuals of where these chords are based on in the scale. Then you just plug in different versions of whatever voicing you want to do. If you want to get a little more jazzy, using the major 7s and minor 7s and whatnot. So it's nice. It's a good, nice foundation to work off of, basically, is what I'm getting at. So the first note is basically going to be our key. So we're in the key of G. And if you look at your second line of the chart here, the page, it says Nashville numbering system, which is basically what we're discussing here. Just playing in key, which is what diatonic means. So we have our first 6 notes labeled, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now they're going to be represented as Roman numerals. The uppercase Roman numerals will indicate a major chord. The lowercase Roman numerals will indicate a minor chord. So if you look at the chart, the 1, the 4, and the 5 chords, or the 1st, the 4th, and the 5th notes of the scale will become major chords. The 2nd, 3rd, and the 6th will become minor chords. So we just got to plug in the right bar chord based on where the note is, as far as if it's an E string note or an A string note. So the very first note, again, which is our root or the key that we're in the key of G, becomes a major chord. So you have a G major, which is now known as the 1 chord. So that's the foundation. And this would be 1. Then the next note in the scale, which is right here, the 5th fret, this will become a minor chord. Now it's called the 2 chord. So you have a 1 chord and a 2 chord. So we're just walking up the scale, but playing a bar chord instead of just a single note. Now where the pinky normally is, this is the 3rd note of the scale, is another minor. So it's the exact same pattern as the 2 chord. That gives you 1, which is major, 2 is minor, and the 3 is minor. Now going to the A string, here's the fourth note of the scale. This will become a major chord, so here's the major chord pattern. So you have 1, 2, 3, now 4. The 5 chord, same thing as a 4 chord, so just a whole step higher. So now you have major, minor, minor, major, major. And then the 6th chord, last note of the scale as far as what we're concerned with, is going to be the minor chord. This will be the last fingering of these main 4 bar chords. So that gives you the whole thing. You have major, minor, minor, major, major, and minor. And like I said, the nice thing is you're covering all of the main 4 bar chord shapes. You have this major shape, and then on the 4 and 5 chord you have this other major shape. You have the minor shape on 2 and 3, and you have the other minor shape on 6. So the first thing you want to do is practicing the bar chords going between the shapes. So I have what's called a rebound approach, where you start off with the 1 chord, then you bounce into the 2 chord, bring it back to the 1 chord, jump to the 3 chord, back to 1, down to the 4 chord, back to 1, the 5 chord, back to 1, and then the 6 chord, back to 1. And what's nice about that is it gives you the visuals so you can see how the other chords relate to where the 1 chord is. When you're going to switch keys, this whole shape is just going to shift around on the fretboard. And there's 2 main shapes for the Nashville system, but this is a good one to just get the concept out on the table and just get used to playing around a little bit. So obviously if you want to shift into the key of A, you go from the G here to the A, it'll be the exact same scale. It's still the major scale, and we're only concerned with the first 6 notes. So your 1 chord again, 2 chord, 3 chord, so major, minor, minor, 4 chord, major, 5 chord, major, 6 chord, minor. So the nice thing is you can float around this key. Now we're in the key of A, and all you really need to do is know where the 1 chord is. Everything else is just a matter of what your perspective is based on where 1 is. So if you know, oh, okay, the 2 chord is just up here, and you can see it in the scale when you walk the scale. It's just the 2nd note of the scale. It makes it a lot easier to know, oh, okay, this is D minor, this is A major, that's E major, etc., etc. It makes it very nice for floating into different keys and even just kind of diving into working with the whole concept of how the scales and the chords relate. So if we go back to the key of G, so you have your exercise where obviously you want to run the scale to get used to the visuals on the whole scale. And your goal is that as you're playing these chords, you should be able to see the outline of the scale over the top of each of the chords. And that's going to basically say, okay, I'm playing a chord, I have all these other notes I can add to the chord, whether I want to do a lick, and back to the chord. So you can sit there and really just jam with yourself by strumming the chord and walking part of the scale. The other thing that's kind of nice is I have an exercise where you can help train the visuals of seeing the scale and the chords. And what you would do is literally start with the first chord, so the 1 chord again. And then you would start your scale from the root note of that chord. In this case, it's right from the beginning. So I would strum the 1 chord, and I would walk all the way up the scale. And just go at your own tempo. It doesn't have to be fast. As long as you're playing the pattern and you've got the pattern memorized so you can see the visuals on it. I strum the chord. Now I go to the 2 chord, which is minor, and when I run the scale, I don't start with the first note of the scale, I start with the 2nd note of the scale with that particular finger. This is again where the fingering is really important. So I start with my 2nd finger, because that's where the 2 chord is, and I walk the scale from that note all the way to the top, and I stop at that note again, and I strum the 2 chord. And I go to the 3 chord. This one's tricky because now I get to use your pinky. So I start with the pinky, it's 3rd note of the scale, and I walk the scale from there. strum the chord at the end. And here's the 4 chord, starting with the first finger on the A string. So now I'm not even worrying about the first 3 notes. I'm starting right at that 4th note of the scale because I'm on the 4th chord. Right back into the chord. Here's the 5 chord. Same thing, but now I'm going to start with my 2nd finger. That's the visuals of the scale. And then finally the 6th chord. And here's another pinky note. Back to the 6th chord. So that gives you a nice visual to see where the chord is and how the scale is underneath that pattern. But you can really just improvise literally by playing whatever chord you want and just playing the scale with it. Just try to make up your own melodies. The nice thing is when you're dealing with the Nashville system, you're dealing with 6 chords that are guaranteed to work together in any order, and all you need is the one scale behind everything. So it's not like as you're switching a chord, you don't need to switch a scale pattern. So that's the beauty of working with the major scale. And you'll notice as you're playing these chords and playing melodies behind it, that lick there didn't sound like it was a major scale. It didn't have that happy kind of vibe. So the chords will help shape the sound of the scale. So we're just concerned about the shape of a major scale and being able to see that whole shape as it overlaps these 6 chords. And that's the first demonstration of the relationship, or the foundation demonstration of the relationship between chords and scales. So the only difference is now you would say, all right, well, instead of doing the 1 chord as a major, you'll learn about major 7. Now I do a major 7 chord. Or instead of doing a 2 chord as minor, I'll do a 2 chord as a minor 9. And it changes the sound of the chord, but the scale can always fit behind these chords. So you can sit there and just improvise a jam based on 6 chords in the key, and when you want a solo, you hop on that scale. And then basically from there you just start expanding out. Every note in the key will eventually have a scale assigned to it, which is what's called modal theory. And that's where you get into the Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, those terms where you're learning patterns as they stack up the fretboard to eliminate that whole being stuck in a box sort of thing, which thankfully this major scale, being 3 notes per string, is actually pretty big. So it's not like you're stuck in a pentatonic box or whatnot. But the theory basically will teach you, as you get into this kind of stuff, how to take a pentatonic and say, okay, I know the major scale, I know my 6 chords, where do I play a pentatonic scale? And there's theory where, okay, now you assign the pentatonic to this note of the scale, and always will be that way. So it's a nice way to build up a foundation of theory without being scared of the whole concept of theory. So hopefully that makes sense, and enjoy, and be sure to check on YouTube for any more videos from Quistorf Guitar 101, and enjoy the monster grips. Okay, talk to you soon.